So, I popped into High House Insurance to see if they could quote for my house insurance rather than using the internet. High House got a great deal. So to celebrate, I bought a posh hairdo. It made me look beautiful, gorgeous enough to become a highly paid model. I then won Celebrity Big Brother. I had an affair with an MP. Now I'm promoting a doll of me that says, "Cool, blimey, you're well fit."
Happy things happen when you talk face-to-face with High House Insurance. See if we can beat your home insurance quote from the internet. Find us on the High Street, Selsey, or call 606 552.
Hi, my name's Keith Barnes and I'd like to welcome you to this week's Selsey Internet Radio podcast. In this week's programme, Mary tells us what's going on in and around the village for the coming week. Ellis Berg tells us a tale about the Selsey Dog. Lynn gives us a recipe for pork croquettes. And finally we have a story from Thea entitled Sweet Dreams. So firstly we go across to Mary, who's going to tell us what's going on in and around Selsey for the coming week.
Hello, Mary Kennedy back again to tell you what's on in Selsey this week. Come along to Selsey Library on Monday the 3rd of November between 10:30 and 12 noon to meet your community warden. And on Tuesday you can meet your PCSO again at the library at 2:30. On Wednesday the 5th there is an art from scratch afternoon at the shop from 2 till 4. Book your place for that at the shop. And later on Wednesday the community choir starts up again in the town hall from 7 till 8:30. The cost is £20 for 7 weeks. More details can be found on the ArtStream website. On Saturday the 9th, there's a knit and natter session at Selsey Works between 10 and 12. And 2 events on Sunday the 9th, the tabletop sale at Selsey Centre from 9 till 12:30, and Selsey U3A's Christmas market in the town hall from 10 till 3. Looking ahead to next week, Seikos are hosting a fish and chip supper and jazz night on Saturday the 15th. Tickets cost £12, which includes entry and supper, and they are available at High House Insurance. I'd like to give some publicity on behalf of my daughter, Helen Cookson, who ran the Selsey Ranger Guide Unit some years ago. She's taking on 40 challenges in the year leading up to her 40th birthday, in memory of her daughters Rebecca and Rachel, to raise funds for Chestnut Tree House Children's Hospice and the Sussex Snowdrop Trust. Both give invaluable support to families who have children with life-limiting conditions, and they could help even more if they had more money. Helen has set up a website, helen40challenges.uk, and if you follow the link to Why 40 Challenges, you'll have all the information.
Well, there are some very worthwhile things to be doing there, especially supporting Chestnut House and the Snowdrop Trust, so get yourself along to Helen's page and donate some money, and then treat yourself to a night out at the town hall, listening to a lovely little jazz band, a very good night's entertainment on behalf of Seikos, and fish and chips as well. Can't be bad. Next we go across to Ellis Berg, who's going to tell us a very unlikely story about the Selsey Dog.
This story is of the famous Selsey Dog. I can hear what you're saying. You've never heard of the famous Selsey Dog, so how can it be famous? Well, Selsey people like to keep things to themselves, keep things quiet. They knew that if the people of Siddlesham, or worse still, Hunston, got to know about the dog, they'd set traps for it, catch it, and sell it to the circus. Yes, they knew their Hunston and Siddlesham people all right. But you may say, well, what was this dog famous for? Well, you'll scarcely believe it, but not only could it understand every word you said, provided you spoke English, it could answer you in perfect English itself, which was unusual in Selsey to begin with. And this dog, well, it's a bit of a mystery. Nobody knew where it lived, because if you said to the dog, "Where do you live?" the dog would say, "Where I sleep." I see, so where do you sleep? "Oh, where I live." Oh yes, they'd turn round and walk away. And there was also the problem of the dog licence. In those days there used to be dog licences, 7 and 6 a throw, and nobody could find out to send the demand for the 7 and 6. In the end they gave it up. And how this dog lived, well, the local shopkeepers would feed it, the bakers would give it old stale cakes, or not so stale sometimes. The butcher would give him a bone, the fishmonger would throw him a fillet because he knew the dog shouldn't have bones in his fish. And one way and another, it had a pretty good life. Everybody liked him. He was very polite. He always said, "Excuse me if he brushed past you, and thank you if you gave him anything to eat." And now you'd have thought there would have been a lot of stories about this dog. Well, I'm sorry to say that I only know one. I'm sure there were stories, and if anybody can find out where these stories are, or tell me them, I'd be very, very grateful, because, as I say, I only know one story, and the story I know is this one. The dog was seen trotting along the road, mumbling to itself, and he ran slowly, if you can run slowly, into the post office. Stopped at the counter, stood on his hind legs, put his paws on the counter, looked the counter assistant in the eye and said, "I wish to send a telegram." "You want to send a telegram, sir?" "Oh yes, of course, yes, certainly." And the counter assistant reached for its pad and a pen. "And what message would you like to send?" "Oh, and it's this," said the dog. "It's bark, 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 bark." "I see," said the assistant. "Bark, bark, 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 bark. Oh, you might be interested to know that for no more money you can send 2 more barks." The dog looked at him and said, "Don't be ridiculous. That wouldn't make any sense at all." I'm sorry, that's the only story I know about him, but as I say, if you know any better, get hold of me quickly. My number's in the book. Thank you, and goodbye.
Well, I have to say I enjoyed the story, Ellis.
We go across now, sadly for the final time, to Hugh and Lynn, who are going to be rustling up between them some pork croquettes.
Okay, we've got Lynn in the studio again this morning.
Good morning, Hugh.
And what are we going to do?
Roast pork croquettes.
Okay.
Bit of a difference there, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, lovely.
I think that's quite, well, this sounds quite good to me, because I find that I don't like roast pork cold as much as I do it hot.
Oh, yes.
And something that will allow you to use the cold roast pork is got to have an advantage.
I agree. It's a bit like lamb. I only like lamb when it's hot.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, for this recipe then, roast pork croquettes, 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 80 grams of onions, which we're going to dice up, 1 clove of minced garlic, half a teaspoon of coriander seeds, toasted and ground, using a pestle and mortar if you've got to, but you can buy them. 250 grams of leftover cooked roast pork with a bit of fat. Keep the crackling for garnishing the dish.
Yeah.
Okay. 200 grams of leftover cooked roast potatoes or cooked boiled potatoes. 2 tablespoons of plain flour, lightly seasoned with salt and pepper. 1 large egg, lightly beaten with 1 tablespoon of cold water. 100 grams of dried breadcrumbs, some sea salt and freshly cracked black pepper, and some sunflower oil for deep frying. That's optional, of course. For the honey roasted baby parsnips, Jerusalem artichokes, chestnut mushrooms and black cabbage, you need 400, this is what you're going to serve it with, I take it,
Yep.
440 grams of baby parsnips, skin on, washed well, 350 grams of Jerusalem artichokes, peeled and cut into quarters, 180 grams of chestnut mushrooms, yummy, cut into quarters, 1 teaspoon of chopped fresh thyme, 1 tablespoon of rapeseed oil plus extra for drizzling, 80 grams of unsalted butter, 1 tablespoon of runny honey, and 120 grams of black cabbage, shredded in large pieces. Does it have to be black cabbage for your recipe? No. It doesn't have to be black cabbage for this recipe, but this recipe sounds absolutely lovely. First, prepare the croquettes. So you're melting the butter in a medium pan over a medium heat, adding the onions, the garlic, and the ground coriander, and salt and pepper, and saute them for 6 to 8 minutes or until they're golden brown and tender. Remove it from the heat and leave it to cool for 10 to 15 minutes. Meanwhile, rip the leftover roast pork into fine shreds and set the crackling aside for serving. It's becoming fashionable, to buy shredded pork and shredded chicken.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh. You see it in the supermarkets, don't you now?
Yeah.
Shredded pork. And you think, for heaven's sake, just do it. Just get some pork and do it. Take 1/3 of the ripped pork meat, especially the fatty bits, and place it in a food processor with the leftover roast potatoes. Then add 1/3 of the cooked onion mixture. Pulse blend to mash the mixture together. Turn it out onto a large mixing bowl and add the remaining ripped pork meat and cooked onion mixture, mixing well to combine. Leave the mixture to cool, then chill it in the fridge for 1 hour. Once it's chilled, divide and shape the mixture into 4 even-sized log-shaped croquettes. First, roll the croquettes in the seasoned flour, then in the beaten egg, and lastly roll them in the dried breadcrumbs to coat them all over, and refrigerate them for about 30 minutes before you cook them. Prepare the honey-roasted baby parsnips, Jerusalem artichokes and chestnut mushrooms. Preheat the oven to 180 degrees centigrade, so that's gas mark 4. Put the parsnips, Jerusalem artichokes, mushrooms and thyme in a large roasting pan with rapeseed oil. Season generously with salt and pepper and toss to mix. Cut the butter into small pieces and scatter over the vegetables and then drizzle over the honey. Roast in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes or until the parsnips and artichokes are cooked and tender, and keep them warm until you're ready to serve them. Meanwhile, you can cook the croquettes. You can either deep fry them, or if you don't want to do that, you can bake them up in the oven for a healthier option. And to deep fry though, heat some sunflower oil in an electric deep fat fryer or in a deep fat frying pan. Anything really, a chip pan we used to call them, didn't we?
That's right.
Chip pan, everybody had a chip pan, to a temperature of about 160 degrees. Or until a small piece of brown bread browns within 20 seconds in the hot oil. Once the oil is hot enough, deep fry the croquettes for 8 to 10 minutes or until golden brown and hot all the way through. Remove the croquettes using a slotted spoon and drain on kitchen paper.
I have to tell you that when I do this, I roast them in the oven.
Yes.
I don't like them deep fried.
No, I would much prefer them roasted in the oven, so there you go. Alternatively, which is the best way then, heat the oven to 180 degrees centigrade, gas mark 4, and line a baking tray with non-stick baking paper. Place the chilled croquettes on the prepared baking tray and bake them off in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes until they're cooked all the way through, or hot all the way through, and golden brown. You can keep them cooked warm whilst cooking the black cabbage, and to crisp up the crackling, place the leftover crackling on a lined baking tray in the oven for at least the last 5 minutes of the cooking time of the croquettes.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, to cook the black cabbage, cook the cabbage in a large saucepan of boiled salted water 3 to 4 minutes or until tender and cooked but not overcooked. Nobody likes mushy cabbage these days. It should be cooked a bit more than al dente because if it's undercooked, black cabbage can be tough and quite leathery in texture. But drain the cooked cabbage, season it with salt and pepper and toss with a drizzle of rapeseed oil. And to serve, divide the honey roasted vegetables and cooked black cabbage between 4 serving plates. Place 1 croquette on each plate and divide the crackling between the plates and then serve. Doesn't that sound lovely?
Yeah, and what are you going to drink with it?
Wine.
Yeah, which one?
Oh, actually I would go with white. I
always choose a really dark, full fruity red.
With your pork.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I would go with white wine. No, I'm not a lover of red wine at all, actually.
Okay.
All right, so that sounds absolutely wonderful. That's another one of Hugh's recipes. Thank you for that, Hugh.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Well, it's going to seem strange for me not having my almost weekly go at Hugh about his pursuit of wine and food, but I'm sure he's looking down on us now with a nice glass of red in his hand and having a smile to himself. Cheers, Hugh.
And for the final item in this week's podcast, we go across to Thea, who's going to tell us a story entitled Sweet Dreams.
This is partially true. In fact, it's almost more than partially true. It's called Sweet Dreams. I always wanted to live in the country. Memories of childhood holidays on the farm had left me with a fondness for the rural life. However, fate decreed that I should earn my living in the heart of town. One searingly hot night, in the midst of a summer heat wave, in spite of leaving the windows wide open to catch the slightest breeze, it was hot and clammy in the sauna-like confines of our bed. Longing for the cooler atmosphere of the countryside, I let my imagination carry me away to green fields. I imagined dipping my toes in a soft, rippling stream as it flowed gently over the pebbles, lifting my face to catch the breeze as it rustled in the leaves of the tree. I could almost smell the grass and hear the cows lowing, see the chickens pecking at the ground. I began to drift gently off to sleep. The silence of our bedroom was shattered by the loud crowing of a cockerel. Now, I've always had a vivid imagination, but this was real. The farmyard was here in our room. I switched on the light and frantically shook my husband. "There's a cock in the room! Oh, get him out of here!" The poor man grunted. Then, as he became aware of the continual crowing from across the room, he leapt stark naked from the bed, highlighted in all his glory against the curtainless open window. "Switch it off! Switch it off!" He groped desperately around for something to cover himself with. "Oh, never mind that, it's in the linen basket! Oh, get it out!" I shrieked at him. By now he'd managed to grab hold of my discarded nightie, and holding that in one hand to preserve his modesty, he made his way gingerly over to the basket in the corner. He carefully lifted the lid. In spite of the crowing, no feathered creature flew out, and apart from my husband, all that was exposed were yesterday's cast-offs. Suddenly he leant over and pulled out his jeans. Then with a flourish he proceeded to extract something from the back pocket. Lying in the palm of his hand was a large watch from which the loud crowing of a cockerel emanated. Trying to pacify me, he explained that the watch was given to him by a partially sighted friend who always wore a talking watch, featuring an alarm. Being a bit of an eccentric, this friend chose the sound of a crowing cockerel over sweet music for his wake-up call. "Oh, but why us? Why do we need a flaming cockerel to wake us in the middle of the night?" I asked, not unnaturally. It seemed the verbal part of the watch no longer worked, so a new one was purchased, and this one was donated, yes, to my husband. The mystery is why it suddenly decided to work that night. I was just happy in the knowledge that I could sleep soundly in my bed without the fear of waking to find myself on old MacDonald's farm. Oh, and yes, that watch went back into the jeans pocket for a good turn in the boil wash. I had to make sure the cockerel was dead.
Well, that's it from this week's podcast. My thanks to Mary, to Thea, to Ellis, to Hugh and Lynn, and to all of you for listening. I hope you can tune in next week. Bye for now.